My name is Natalie Carter. I'm 30 years old. And the strange thing about being the person everyone calls responsible is that you don't realize when responsibility quietly turns into carrying someone else's life on your back. Not all at once, just piece by piece. 6 months ago, I said yes to a man I thought I understood. His name is Ethan Blake. He's 28, confident, charming. The kind of man who could walk into a room and make people believe he belonged there, even if he didn't. We had been together for 2 years. I'm an accountant at a regional firm. Not glamorous, not exciting, but I like numbers. I like clarity. I like knowing that if something doesn't add up, there's always a reason. Ethan works in marketing at a fashion startup. He calls it curating brand identity. I call it selling an illusion. I didn't think that difference mattered. Not then. It started with a conversation that didn't feel important at the time. We were sitting at the kitchen table, half planning our wedding, half arguing about centerpieces we hadn't even picked yet, and then he said it, casually, like he was asking me to pass the salt. Once we're married, my student loans become our problem to solve together. I remember pausing, not because of what he said, but because of how easily he said it, like the decision had already been made, somewhere I wasn't invited. I knew he had loans. He'd mentioned them before, always vaguely. Everyone has them, he'd say, brushing it off with that effortless shrug of his. So I smiled, because that's what you do when you love someone. Of course, I said, we're a team. How much are we talking about? That was the moment something shifted, just slightly. He didn't answer right away. He shifted in his chair, looked at his coffee like it might answer for him. 87,000. I almost dropped my mug. 87,000? It's not that bad, he said quickly. Lots of people have more. Maybe. But numbers don't scare me. What scares me is when people don't respect them. What did you study? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Communications and fashion marketing. Double major. I nodded slowly. Big number, but manageable. That's what I do. I solve problems. Okay, I said, already thinking ahead. What's your current payment plan? I've been doing income-based repayment, about $200 a month. I did the math in my head. Interest alone would eat that alive. At that rate, I started, then stopped myself. How long have you been paying? 4 years. And the balance started at? 83. So in 4 years, he had paid nearly $10,000 and somehow owed more than when he started. A quiet, familiar realization settled in my chest. Not panic, not judgment, just clarity. We had a problem. A big one. It's okay, I said gently. We'll figure it out together. His shoulders relaxed instantly, like I had just confirmed something he already believed. Can you show me your budget? His expression went blank. Budget? That was the second crack. Small, but sharp. 2 hours later, I understood everything. And I wish I didn't. Rent, his half, $1,100. Car payment, 2020 BMW 3 Series, $580. Insurance, $220. Boutique gym, $189. Regular gym, $45. Meal delivery, $280. Subscriptions, $87. Shopping, $1,200. Eating out, $800. Coffee, $240. Hair, nails, grooming, $450. Skincare, $95. And that was just the visible part. 3 credit cards, $11,000 in debt, floating, barely staying above water. This is why we need to tackle the loans together, Ethan said, leaning back like he'd just proven a point. I stared at the numbers, at the life he was living, at the version of reality he had built, where none of this was a problem. Absolutely, I said slowly, but something inside me had already started pulling away. How about I put together a plan? He smiled, relieved, grateful, like I had just saved him. I spent the next 3 days doing what I do best. Spreadsheets, projections, scenarios. I mapped out every dollar, every leak, every possible path out. Because that's how I love people. I fix things. I build solutions. I create stability where there isn't any. By Sunday night, I had something beautiful. A roadmap. A future. I set up my laptop on the coffee table. Color-coded graphs. Clean projections. 4 years to freedom if we were aggressive. 5 if we wanted breathing room. Ethan sat across from me, legs tucked under him, holding a caramel macchiato like this was just another casual evening. This is amazing, he said, eyes lighting up. How? I smiled, hopeful. First, we need to free up cash flow. I clicked to the first slide. Step 1, sell the BMW. Silence. Just a flicker. Barely noticeable. But I saw it. You owe $28,000, I continued. It's worth around $30,000. We take the difference, plus savings, and get you a reliable used Honda or Toyota for under $10,000. His smile faded. Sell my car? It's eating 20% of your income, I said gently. And insurance alone? But I love my car. I paused. And there it was. Not resistance. Not confusion. Attachment. To a number that's drowning you, I wanted to say. But instead, I understand, I said. But you also love being debt-free, right? I guess. Not yes. Not commitment. Just yes. Step 2, I continued, pushing forward. Cancel redundant subscriptions. I listed them. Gym, meal service, boxes. $659 saved instantly. They're not redundant, he snapped. They serve different purposes. I blinked. Could you do weights at the boutique gym? That's not the point. I nodded slowly. Because now, I was starting to understand what the point actually was. Step 3, reduce shopping to $200 a month. His eyes widened. $200? For everything? For necessities. What about clothes? Work image matters, Natalie. Then we budget for it, intentionally. His jaw tightened. Step 4, eating out $200. That's when he pushed the laptop away. This is insane. The word landed harder than I expected. You want me to live like a peasant? I stared at him. At the man I was supposed to marry. I want us to pay off $98,000 in debt, I said quietly. What about your sacrifices? He shot back. I don't see anything about what you're giving up. Fair. So I showed him. Canceled memberships, sold assets, delayed goals, even postponing the wedding. Because stability mattered more than a single day. Postpone the wedding? He repeated, standing up. Just until we're in a better place. You're trying to control me. The word hit differently. Control. Ethan, this is math. No, this is financial abuse. And just like that, everything I thought I was building for us cracked. He left that night, said he needed space, took his Louis Vuitton bag. The one I now knew cost more than 3 months of groceries. I sat alone, laptop still open, numbers still staring back at me. And for the first time, I wondered if love could survive reality. A text came through hours later. You're right about some things. Let's talk tomorrow. But I'm keeping my car. I stared at the screen, at the one thing he chose to say with certainty. Not, we'll fix this. Not, I understand. Just, I'm keeping my car. I didn't delete the spreadsheets. Something told me I was going to need them. Ethan came back the next afternoon like nothing had really happened. Not apologetic, not defensive. Just composed. Like he had spent the night rehearsing a version of this conversation where everything still worked out in his favor. I've been thinking, he said, settling onto the couch, his usual oversized coffee in hand. You made some valid points. I studied him carefully. The tone was right. The words were right. But something underneath it wasn't. I appreciate that, I said. I just want us to start our marriage on solid ground. Exactly, he nodded quickly. That's what I want too. For a second, I felt it. Relief. Like maybe this was the moment we turned back toward each other instead of drifting apart. I'm willing to make some sacrifices, he added. I waited and waited. That's great, I said gently. What are you thinking? I'll cancel the meal delivery service. Silence. I blinked. That's a start, I said slowly. It saves almost $300 a month, he added, like he was presenting something impressive. It does, I agreed. What else? He hesitated, then shrugged. I'll try to eat out less. Maybe $600 instead of $8. I stared at him. That's still $20 a day, Ethan. I have work lunches. Networking. You don't understand how important that is in my field. There it was again. Image. Always image. Okay, I said, keeping my voice calm. Anything else? He sighed, like I was asking too much. Fine, $500. I reached for my phone, opened the calculator. Not because I needed it, because I wanted him to see what I was doing. So you're freeing up about $580 a month. He nodded. Proud. Confident. Like he had just solved the problem. Your student loan payment on a standard plan is around $890. He didn't react. That's why it's our problem to solve, he said smoothly. You make more than me. And there it was. Not partnership. Not teamwork. Expectation. I made $78,000 a year. He made $52,000. But I also had zero debt. Because I had worked through college. Because I had said no to things I wanted. Because I had spent 3 years after graduating living in a tiny apartment, counting every dollar until my own loans were gone. I didn't say any of that. Not out loud. I'm happy to help, I said carefully. But we need more than this. What about the car? I asked. His expression hardened instantly. Absolutely not. It's the single biggest expense we can eliminate. I need reliable transportation. A 2015 Civic is reliable. A 2015 Civic is embarrassing. The words landed between us like something fragile breaking. And suddenly, everything made sense. Ethan, I said quietly, are you more concerned about appearances or our future? That's not fair, he snapped. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. What pressure? My job, my industry, image matters. Does your company require you to drive a BMW? No. Do they pay for it? No, but... Then it's a choice. Stop being logical about everything. His voice cracked on the last word. And for a moment, I saw it. Not anger. Fear. But not the kind of fear that pushes someone to change. The kind that makes them hold tighter to what's hurting them. That night, I did something I don't usually do. Something that didn't fit into any spreadsheet. I reached out to Melody, his best friend. Hey, I texted. Random question. Ethan mentioned everyone in your group has major student loans. Just trying to understand what's normal. She replied almost immediately. LOL, what? I have like 15,000 left. Jasmine paid hers off last year. I stared at the screen. What? Ethan said everyone has 6 figures. What? No way. Is that what he has? I didn't respond. But I didn't need to. Because now I knew. He wasn't just avoiding reality. He was rewriting it. The next day he came back with research. I asked in a Facebook group, he said, dropping onto the couch beside me. That's good, I said. What did you find? He turned his phone toward me. Post after post. Stories about partners paying off loans. Men covering everything. See, he said, this is normal. I scrolled. Slowly. Carefully. Ethan, these aren't financial strategies. You're being judgmental. These are fantasies. You just don't get it, he snapped. I didn't grow up like you. I looked up. What does that mean? You act like money is easy. I let out a quiet breath. I grew up in a trailer park, I said softly. My mom cleaned houses. I worked through college. He blinked, thrown off. I don't act rich, I continued. I live below my means. There's a difference. That should have been the moment things shifted. The moment reality broke through. But it didn't. Because the next call came from his mother. And suddenly, I wasn't just arguing with Ethan anymore. Natalie, Patrice said, her voice smooth but sharp underneath. Ethan tells me you're being unreasonable about his loans. I suggested we reduce expenses, I said evenly, including selling the car. That car is part of his image. A reliable car doesn't hurt his ability to work. You women, she sighed, always want a princess, but don't want to pay for the upkeep. I almost laughed. I'm not asking him to be a princess, I said. I'm asking him to be a partner. He is a partner. He is marrying you. And I'm asking him to contribute to the life we're building. Sacrifices, she said. Marrying you is sacrifice enough. The line went quiet. And then I hung up. Because there are conversations that don't go anywhere. And I was starting to realize this might be one of them. Son. After that, it became subtle. Not direct arguments. Not loud fights. Just pressure. Loan statements left open on the table. Heavy sighs when bills were paid. Comments about stress. Made while ordering $15 cocktails. Like he was performing struggle, without actually changing anything. The breaking point came 2 nights later. I walked in and found him on the couch, crying. Laptop open. Loan balance glowing on the screen like something alive. What's wrong? I asked, sitting beside him. Seeing that number, he whispered. It's overwhelming. And just like that, my anger disappeared. Because I wasn't made of stone. Hey, I said softly. That's why we make a plan. He nodded quickly. You're right. I'll do whatever it takes. Something in my chest loosened. Really? Yes, he said, grabbing my hand. I can't live like this anymore. Finally, I opened my laptop, pulled up the spreadsheets. Okay, I said. First thing tomorrow, we list the BMW. He froze. What? You said whatever it takes. No, I meant you could help more. I blinked. Help more? Maybe take on a second job, just temporarily. I stared at him, not angry, not shocked. Just very, very clear. You want me to work 2 jobs, I said slowly, so you can keep your BMW. It would show you're committed to us. The words echoed in my head. Committed, as opposed to selling your car? I asked. That's different. How? He opened his mouth, closed it. Because it just is.
Fish.
I closed the laptop. Not slammed, not dramatic. Just closed. Stood up, walked to the bedroom, and pulled a suitcase out of the closet. What are you doing? He asked, following me. Packing. For what? I folded a sweater carefully. Moving out. Silence. Heavy. Unbelieving. You're ending this over a car? I looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time, I didn't see the man I loved. I saw someone waiting to be carried. This isn't about the car, I said quietly. It's about everything you won't change. We can fix this, he insisted. I'll sell it. Fine, I'll sell it. Too fast. Too easy. Too late. I don't want that version of you, I said. The one who only changes when he's about to lose something. His face shifted. Confusion. Anger. Fear. You're really calling off our engagement? Over money? I shook my head. I'm calling it off over character. He left that night. Again. But this time, it felt different. Not temporary. Not space. Final. The next morning, my phone buzzed. You're going to regret this. Good luck finding someone who will put up with your cheap ass. I stared at the message. For a second, I almost didn't respond. But then, you're petty? Maybe. Satisfying? Definitely. The apartment felt quieter after that. Cleaner, like something heavy had finally been removed. My laptop was still open. Spreadsheets still there. But now, they weren't about us anymore. They were about me. And something told me That was exactly where they should have been all along. I thought the hardest part would be ending it. I was wrong. Ending it was one kind of pain. What came after was something stranger. Because once Ethan realized I wasn't coming back, he stopped trying to sound like my fiancé and started sounding like a salesman pitching a deal that had already expired. The first text came 2 days after he left. I did the math. If we stay together, you save money by living here. That's $1,100 a month you could put toward my loans. Win-win. I read it twice. Not because it was complicated. Because it was so simple. So nakedly selfish. No, I miss you. No, can we talk? Just arithmetic. Just entitlement. Just him. Finally saying the quiet part out loud. Our problem had never really meant our problem. It had meant mine. And now that I was gone, he wasn't even pretending otherwise. I didn't answer. Silence, apparently, offended him more than rejection. 3 days later, he showed up at my office. I was at my desk reviewing quarterly reports when the receptionist called. There's a man here asking for you, she said carefully. He says it's urgent. I knew before she said his name. Some part of me always knew when trouble was about to step into the room wearing expensive shoes. Ethan was standing in the lobby holding a white binder. Not flowers. Not an apology. A binder. He smiled when he saw me, like this was romantic. I just need 10 minutes, he said. 9 too many, I replied. Natalie, please, I put something together. Of course he had. He opened the binder right there in the lobby. Charts. Printouts. Fake confidence. A whole presentation explaining why I should reconsider ending the engagement. I wish I were exaggerating. There were pie charts showing that his debt was an investment in our future. There were projections based on the assumption that within 2 years, he would be earning executive-level money. There was an entire page titled, Why Temporary Support Creates Long-Term Wealth. I stared at it, then at him, and suddenly I understood something almost funny. He hadn't heard a word I said. Not really, because in his mind, the problem was never his spending, never his choices, never his refusal to sacrifice. The problem was that I had failed to fund the version of his life he believed he deserved. You're serious? I asked. Completely, he said. I just need you to look at this rationally. Rationally. The irony nearly took me out. You made a binder, I said flatly, to explain why I should finance your delusion. His smile twitched. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. You're being emotional. That word. That tired, lazy word. Maybe he thought because I'm a woman, it would make me second-guess myself. Maybe he forgot that I had ended our engagement with a suitcase in one hand and perfect clarity in the other. No, I said quietly. I'm being finished. He tried again. My degree is worth something, Natalie. My image matters. I just haven't had the right support system to fully break through. I looked at him. Really looked. At the tailored coat. The watch. The polished hair. The desperation hiding beneath all of it, like rot beneath paint. And whose fault is that? I asked. He opened his mouth. Then the receptionist appeared beside us with security. Apparently he had refused to leave when she asked the first time. Good. I didn't have the energy to repeat myself. He called after me while they escorted him out. You're making a huge mistake. Maybe, but not the one he thought. A week later, the social media posts started. He never used my name. He didn't have to. The vague posting was obvious enough. Things like, some people don't understand that supporting your partner means believing in their future. Control dressed as concern is still control. Real love doesn't come with spreadsheets attached. That last one almost made me laugh. Because yes, actually, sometimes it does. Sometimes love looks like sitting across from someone and telling them the truth before their life collapses. Sometimes love looks like a spreadsheet, especially when the alternative is denial with a luxury car payment. His friends chimed in under the posts. A few predictable comments about toxic partners and financial abuse. But then Melody showed up. Bless that woman. She commented under one of his posts. Didn't you spend $1,200 a month on clothes while asking her to get a second job? The comment disappeared within minutes. But not before a few people had seen it. Not before the mask slipped a little. And once a mask slips, people start looking harder. That was when Ethan decided to reinvent himself publicly. If he couldn't win me back, he was going to win the audience. He started posting about his glow-up era, photos at rooftop bars, captioned selfies about knowing your worth, stories from upscale restaurants with cryptic lines about abundance and alignment. He wanted the internet to believe he was thriving, that I had fumbled some rare prize. But I knew how much was in his checking account. I knew the numbers underneath the filters, and numbers don't care about captions. Melody kept me updated, partly because she was horrified, partly because by then we had become friends. Unexpectedly. There is something about surviving the same manipulative person that creates intimacy fast. We met for coffee one Saturday morning, and she leaned across the table like she was handing me state secrets. He opened 2 new credit cards, she said. I nearly choked on my drink. What? He says he's investing in his next chapter. I closed my eyes. Please tell me that doesn't mean what I think it means. She gave me a look. He bought a designer bag. I stared at her. A bag? A Chanel. How much? $5,800. For a moment, I genuinely couldn't speak. Not because I was shocked by Ethan anymore, but because there's a point where bad decisions stop feeling real and start feeling theatrical. He said it's an investment piece, Melody added, something about rich men noticing quality. I laughed then. I couldn't help it. A sharp, disbelieving laugh that tasted more tired than amused. Rich men? She lifted one shoulder. I think he's decided his next strategy is replacement. And just like that, the room got colder. Not because I wanted him back. I didn't. But because there's something deeply unsettling about realizing someone can move from build a life with me to find another person to fund me without changing tone, without changing language, without changing the core expectation at all. Replace the face. Keep the function. Provider. Sponsor. Solution. It was never about love. Not in the way I meant it. Sure enough, within weeks, Ethan was on exclusive dating apps. The kind with waiting lists and membership fees and profiles curated to look expensive. He posted just enough to make sure people knew. A watch at a candlelit table. A blurred martini across from a manicured hand. A caption about being with people who operate at your level. I showed Melody that post. She laughed so hard she nearly cried. His level, she said. His credit score is hanging on by a thread. Still, apparently someone bit. For a little while. He matched with a finance guy. Older. Polished. Clearly comfortable with money. Their first date was at one of those restaurants where appetizers cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Ethan posted a photo of the table. Not the man, of course. Just enough to imply success. Then, silence. No more stories. No more hints. No more abundance. 3 days later, Melody called me. You'll appreciate this, she said. I was folding laundry on my bed, sunlight spilling across the room, everything in my life feeling blessedly ordinary. What happened? Date 3, she said, already laughing. He asked Ethan about his financial goals. I sat down. Oh no. Oh yes. Ethan told him about the loans and the credit cards, and that he believes marriage should mean shared financial responsibility. That sounds almost reasonable, I said carefully. Except then he said he expected his future husband to handle most of it so he could focus on advancing his brand. I closed my eyes. And? The guy asked for the check, mid-conversation. I laughed so hard I had to put the phone down. Not because it was cruel, because it was clean. Because sometimes reality walks into the room, drops the bill on the table, and leaves before the dessert menu arrives. By then, I should have stopped caring. I know that. But healing isn't a straight line. And detachment doesn't happen all at once. Sometimes it comes in waves. Sometimes you think you're past something until you hear one more story and feel the old disbelief rise up like smoke. So I let myself feel it. Not love. Not longing. Just grief. For the version of him I had imagined. For the future I had outlined in careful rows and columns. For the woman I had been when I still thought effort could fix incompatibility. Because that was the real heartbreak, wasn't it? Not losing Ethan. Losing the belief that if I explained clearly enough, loved steadily enough, planned wisely enough, someone would meet me there. He never was going to meet me there. He was waiting at the finish line with an empty bag, expecting me to arrive carrying everything. A few days later, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. It was his landlord. And the second he said Ethan's name, I knew part 4 of this disaster had already begun. The landlord didn't waste time. Hi, Natalie, he said. Sorry to bother you, but I used to have your number on file when you were both listed on the lease. Used to. Past tense. I figured you should know. Ethan is 3 weeks behind on rent. He said you'd be covering it. I closed my eyes for a second. Not out of stress. Out of something closer to inevitability. No, I said calmly. We broke up. I'm not responsible for his rent. There was a pause. He mentioned you're still technically engaged. We're not, I replied. Not in any way that matters. Another pause. Well, he's facing eviction if he doesn't pay by Friday. I understand, I said. And I did. I understood exactly how we got here. I understood every decision, every ignored warning, every moment he chose comfort over change. I just wasn't going to fix it. Thursday night, my phone exploded. Calls, texts, notifications stacking on top of each other like a system failure. Ethan. His mother, a cousin I had met twice at a holiday dinner. I stared at the screen for a long moment before opening the first message. Ethan. How can you let me be homeless? Then his mother. Patrice. A real woman wouldn't let this happen. And the cousin. Somehow the boldest of all. Cousin. It's just 1 month's rent. Don't be petty. I let out a slow breath. Then I typed exactly one response. To Ethan. Sell the BMW. That's 3 months of rent. The reply came instantly. I need my car for work. Of course. Sell the Chanel bag. That's an investment. Get a roommate. I can't live with strangers. Get a second job. I don't have time. I have networking events. The irony was so sharp, it almost felt like humor. The same suggestions. The same logic. The same reality. Rejected. Every single time. Then came the call. I watched it ring. Let it go to voicemail. Listened after. His voice was different. Not polished. Not confident. just cracked. You ruined my life, he said. You destroyed everything. I sat there, phone in my hand, staring at the wall. At the quiet. At the life I had rebuilt piece by piece in the weeks since I walked away. Ruined his life. No, I had stepped out of it. There's a difference. According to Melody, he didn't figure it out by Friday. He got evicted. Had to move in with a cousin in a part of town he used to joke about avoiding. Still had the BMW, though. Of course he did. Because some people would rather lose everything than let go of the one thing that makes them feel like they have something. By the time I heard the full update, the numbers had shifted again. Student loans, $93,000. Credit cards, $18,000. Total, $111,000. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny. Because it was predictable. You can ignore math for a while. But eventually, it collects. The last message he sent me came late at night. No anger this time. No accusations. Just bitterness, wrapped in something that almost sounded like defeat. I hope you're happy. I'm living like a poor person now. This is what you wanted. I read it once. Then again. And for a second, I thought about replying. About explaining. About telling him that none of this was what I wanted. That what I wanted was simple. A partner. Someone who could look at a problem and say, we fix this together. Someone who understood that sacrifice wasn't punishment. It was investment. In us. But I didn't respond. Because there's a point where explanations stop being useful. Where clarity has already been offered and rejected. And anything after that is just noise. So I let the message sit. Unread in spirit. Even if I had seen every word. My life now is quieter. Not empty. Not lonely. Just steady. I moved into a small one-bedroom apartment across town. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. Every bill is paid on time. Every dollar accounted for. I drive a 2012 Honda Accord that starts every morning without drama. I have a budget that includes saving 30% of my income. Some people would call it boring. I call it freedom. Sometimes in the mornings I make coffee in my kitchen. Not from a $5 machine. Not from a drive-through window. Just a simple $20 coffee maker sitting on my counter. And you know what? It tastes better. Not because it's higher quality, but because it doesn't come with anxiety attached. No debt. No denial. No illusion. Just coffee. I think about Ethan sometimes. Not with anger. Not even with sadness anymore. Just understanding. He didn't want a partner. He wanted a provider. Someone to absorb the consequences of his choices while he kept the life he liked. And when I refused, he called it cruelty. But love isn't paying someone else's bills while they ignore the problem. Love isn't carrying someone who refuses to walk. Love is standing side by side, looking at the same reality, and choosing to face it together. He never stood beside me. He stood behind me, waiting. So if there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's this. Spreadsheets don't lie, but people will, especially when the truth requires them to change. And if someone calls that control, when all you're asking for is accountability, that's not love. That's avoidance. Ethan wanted a provider, not a partner. And now, he gets to provide for himself. All $111,000 of it. As for me, I have something better than a perfect plan. I have peace. And for the first time in a long time, that's more than enough.